The massive research station hung like a silent sentinel against the backdrop of endless stars. Dr. Una Park stood motionless, her dark eyes fixed on the creature that filled the enormous containment chamber. The Carrax was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, a living nightmare of muscle, scales, and primal intelligence that seemed to challenge the very definition of life. Station Director Kim watched her with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed doubt. The previous research teams had failed spectacularly. 7 different xenobiological groups had attempted to study the Carrax, and each had been driven away by its incredible destructive capabilities. The creature moved. Not with the jerky motions of a wild animal, but with a calculated grace that suggested something deeper. Its 6 eyes, arranged in a perfect hexagonal pattern, tracked Una's smallest movement. Each eye was a different color: deep crimson, midnight blue, forest green, amber, silver, and a color that seemed to shift between purple and black. "It's watching me," Una murmured, her hand hovering near the holographic control panel. The Carrax was massive. At rest, it measured nearly 20 meters from end to end. Muscular appendages that looked like a cross between tentacles and advanced robotic limbs shifted beneath its scaled skin. Adaptive camouflage technology built into its very biology allowed it to blend partially with its surroundings, creating an unsettling visual effect that made it difficult to determine its exact shape. Sung Ho, her assistant, checked the monitoring systems. Radiation levels, neural activity, environmental parameters, everything was recorded with meticulous precision. The station's advanced sensors captured data that would take decades to fully analyze. "Temperature is stable," Sung Ho reported. "Neural activity is unusual." That was an understatement. The Carrax's brain patterns defied conventional understanding. Traditional scanning methods revealed a complexity that made human neural networks look like simple children's toys. Each neural pathway seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating a communication network that was more like a living computer than a biological brain. Una remembered the reports. Previous encounters with the Carrax had been catastrophic. Research vessels destroyed. Entire exploration teams vanished without a trace. The Galactic Council had declared the species too dangerous to approach, recommending complete avoidance. But humans were different. Where others saw an impossible challenge, Una saw an opportunity. Her experimental communication interface hummed softly. Delicate quantum processors connected to a neural resonance array that she had spent years developing. Most scientists believed communication was impossible. Una believed differently. The Carrax shifted again. This time the movement was deliberate. One of its appendages, looking like a blend of organic muscle and advanced technological components, moved closer to the energy barrier. "Incoming energy spike," Sung Ho warned. But Una remained calm. Her hand touched a series of holographic controls, adjusting frequencies that no previous researcher had even considered. The communication interface began to pulse with a soft blue. Something changed in the containment chamber. The Carrax stopped moving. Its multiple eyes focused entirely on Una, creating an intensity that made the entire station feel silent. Director Kim took a step back. "Park," he said quietly. "Be careful." Una didn't respond. Her entire focus was on the creature. Years of research, thousands of complex calculations, and an intuition that defied scientific explanation had brought her to this moment. First contact wasn't about weapons or power, it was about understanding. The Carrax tilted its massive head. For the first time in recorded history, an intelligent species was about to communicate with a creature that had been considered nothing more than a living weapon of mass destruction. Una took a deep breath. Her fingers danced across the neural interface. The blue light grew stronger. Something was about to happen, something that would change everything. The research station buzzed with tension. Days turned into weeks, and Una's attempts to communicate with the Carrax seemed to be going nowhere. Each experiment ended in frustration, with the creature showing moments of intense interest, followed by complete disinterest. Sung-ho watched the data streams carefully. Neural patterns flickered and danced across multiple holographic displays, revealing nothing but complexity and confusion. The Kariks remained an enigma, powerful, intelligent, but utterly resistant to any form of communication. "It's like talking to a wall," muttered Director Kim during one of the review meetings. The Galactic Council representatives, connected through long-range holographic communication, looked increasingly skeptical. Yuna knew they were one failure away from shutting down the entire project. Billions of credits, years of research, and humanity's reputation for scientific innovation hung in the balance. The containment chamber became her entire world. She modified the neural interface daily, trying different approaches. Some were based on mathematical models, others on quantum communication theories. Each attempt was more desperate than the last. On the 23rd day, something unexpected happened. The Kariks began to react differently. Its multiple eyes would focus intensely on Yuna for exactly 3.6 seconds before looking away. At first, the research team thought it was random, but Yuna noticed a pattern. "It's not random," she told Sung-ho. "It's calculating something." The creature's massive body would shift subtly during these moments. Muscular appendages would move in precise geometric patterns. To an untrained eye, it might look like meaningless movement. But Yuna saw something else. Communication wasn't about speaking. It was about understanding. She began to document every single movement, the angle of each eye, the precise duration of its focus, the slight variations in its muscular contractions. Computers worked overtime, analyzing data that seemed incomprehensible to most researchers. The station's mood grew darker. Funding meetings became more heated. The Galactic Council representatives started suggesting that the project be terminated. Humans were known for their persistence, but this seemed like a hopeless endeavor. Sung-ho found Yuna working late one night. Multiple holographic screens surrounded her, showing complex neural mapping and movement analysis. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but her determination remained unbroken. "Maybe we're approaching this wrong," she mumbled, more to herself than to Sung-ho. The Kariks watched, always watching. Its containment chamber was more than just a prison. It was a complex environment designed to study every possible aspect of the creature's behavior. Advanced sensors tracked everything from molecular changes to quantum-level interactions. On the 31st day, something changed. The creature produced a sound, not a roar, not a growl, but a complex series of vibrations that seemed to pass through the very metal of the station. Sensitive equipment picked up frequencies that defied normal acoustic understanding. "Did you hear that?" Yuna asked, her voice a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Sung-ho checked the monitors. "Impossible frequencies," he whispered. The sound lasted exactly 2.7 seconds. Then silence returned. But something had shifted. The Kariks' behavior was subtly different. Its movements became more calculated. The way its multiple eyes tracked movement suggested something beyond simple animal observation. Director Kim reviewed the data. "This is unprecedented," he admitted, a hint of grudging respect in his voice. Yuna knew they were close to something, not just communication, but a fundamental understanding that could change everything humans knew about intelligent life. The Kariks continued to watch, patient, calculating, waiting. And somewhere in the complex neural patterns and impossible frequencies, a bridge was beginning to form between two completely different forms of intelligence. The station hummed with an electric tension. Yuna stood before the massive containment chamber, her fingers hovering over a complex neural interface that looked more like a work of art than scientific equipment. The Kariks watched her with its 6 impossibly intelligent eyes. Something was different today. Sung-ho noticed it first. The quantum sensors were picking up strange harmonic frequencies that seemed to pulse in perfect synchronization with the creature's internal rhythms. It was like discovering a hidden language that existed between heartbeats and quantum vibrations. "Look," he whispered, pointing at the holographic display. The neural patterns were changing. not randomly, but with a precision that suggested deliberate communication. Each eye of the Carix moved in a specific sequence, a pattern that was too complex to be accidental. Yuna adjusted the communication interface. Her hands moved with a combination of scientific precision and intuitive understanding. Years of research had brought her to this moment. Generations of human curiosity compressed into a single point of potential breakthrough. The first connection happened unexpectedly. A burst of pure information flooded the station's systems. It wasn't language as humans understood it, not words or sounds, but a complex wave of experience, emotion, and raw consciousness that crashed through every sensor and monitoring system. Director Kim nearly dropped his data tablet. "What just happened?" he demanded. Nobody could answer. The Carix's massive body remained still, but its presence filled the entire containment chamber. The creature was communicating, not through traditional means, but through a language of pure thought and energy. Yuna felt something she couldn't explain, memories that weren't her own. Experiences from a civilization so ancient and complex that human understanding seemed like a child's simple drawing compared to a masterpiece. Images flickered through her mind. Vast cosmic landscapes, civilizations that rose and fell across millennia. The Carix wasn't just a creature. It was a living repository of galactic history. Sung-Ho watched in amazement as the station's systems struggled to process the incoming information. Quantum processors overloaded, backup systems engaged. The entire research station seemed to vibrate with an energy that defied normal scientific understanding. "It's talking," Yuna breathed. "We're actually communicating." The breakthrough wasn't just scientific. It was philosophical. Humanity had always assumed intelligence looked like human intelligence. The Carix showed them how limited that understanding was. Complex neural pathways opened like flowers. Each moment revealed layers of communication that humans had never imagined possible. The creature's multiple eyes now seemed less like biological sensors and more like windows into a complex, multidimensional consciousness. Director Kim called an emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. The transmission was filled with excitement and disbelief. No species had ever successfully communicated with the Carix. Humans were about to change everything humans knew about intelligent life. The communication continued. Waves of pure information crashed through the station's systems. It was like downloading the entire history of a civilization in a single moment. Complex, beautiful, terrifying. Sung-Ho's hands moved frantically across the control panels, trying to capture and preserve every single piece of information. But he knew they were capturing only a fraction of what was being shared. The Carix remained still. But its presence filled every corner of the station, a living intelligence that was both ancient and immediate. A consciousness that understood communication as something far beyond simple language. Yuna realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. Not just first contact, but a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could be. Her neural interface continued to pulse. The blue light grew stronger. The connection deepened, and somewhere in the vast darkness of space, everything was about to change. The research station felt different. Something had changed in the way space itself seemed to exist around the Carix containment chamber. Yuna understood now that communication was never about words, but about experiencing another's entire existence. The creature revealed its truth slowly. Humanity had always seen the Carix as a weapon of destruction, but now they discovered a civilization so complex and deep that human understanding seemed like a child's simple drawing. Memories flowed like liquid consciousness. The Carix were not a single species, but a collective intelligence that had traveled across multiple galaxies. They had witnessed civilizations rise and fall. They remembered star systems that no longer existed. Their memory was a living library of cosmic history. Sung-Ho watched in amazement as the station's computers struggled to process the incoming information. Quantum processors worked beyond their designed capabilities, capturing fragments of an ancient consciousness that defied normal understanding. "We were wrong," Yuna whispered. "Everything we thought we knew was wrong." The Carix's multiple eyes told stories of migration, survival, and a form of communication that humans could barely comprehend. Each eye represented a different aspect of their collective memory. One showed cosmic migrations, another displayed complex social structures. The third revealed technological achievements that made human innovation look primitive. Pain was part of their communication. Not physical pain, but the collective memory of loss. Entire civilizations they had watched disappear. Entire star systems consumed by cosmic events. The Kariks had survived by adapting, by understanding, by becoming something more than a simple, biological entity. Director Kim listened to the preliminary reports with growing disbelief. The Galactic Council would never believe what was happening. A human researcher had done what thousands of years of exploration had failed to achieve. The communication was not linear. It was a complex web of experiences, emotions, and collective memories. The Kariks showed Yuna their understanding of existence, not as individual beings, but as a connected consciousness that spanned entire galaxies. Sung Ho noticed something strange happening to Yuna. Her brain patterns were changing. Not dramatically, but subtly. The neural interface was creating a connection that went beyond simple communication. She was experiencing their memories as if they were her own. Technological achievements beyond human imagination revealed themselves. The Kariks had technologies that could manipulate space-time, communicate across dimensional barriers, and understand the fundamental structures of reality in ways that human science could not even imagine. But beneath the technological marvel was something more profound. Emotion. A deep, complex emotional landscape that showed survival was not just about physical strength, but about understanding, adaptation, and collective growth. The station's sensors picked up impossible readings, quantum fluctuations that suggested the Kariks could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their consciousness was not bound by physical limitations like human understanding. "We are not what you thought," the communication suggested. Not in words, but in a complex wave of pure understanding that crashed through Yuna's consciousness. Humanity had always seen the Kariks as a threat, a species to be feared and avoided. Now they were discovering a civilization that had survived by understanding, by adapting, by growing beyond simple biological limitations. Director Kim realized they were witnessing something historic. First contact was never about meeting a new species. It was about understanding a completely different way of existing. Yuna's neural interface continued to pulse. The blue light that had started as a simple communication tool was now a bridge between two completely different forms of intelligence. The Kariks remained still in its containment chamber, but its presence filled every corner of the research station. A living intelligence that was both ancient and immediate. A consciousness that understood communication as something far beyond simple language. And somewhere in the complex, neural patterns and impossible frequencies, two species were beginning to understand each other in a way no one had ever imagined possible. The universe watched and waited. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent. Representatives from 100 different worlds stared in disbelief as Yuna and the Kariks stood together. No containment barriers, no weapons. Just two intelligent beings sharing a connection that defied everything known about communication. Holographic displays showed the impossible. A human researcher and a creature once considered the most dangerous in known space, standing side by side as equals. "Impossible," whispered the Andromedan representative, his translucent form flickering with confusion. Yuna's neural interface pulsed softly. The Kariks' 6 eyes moved in perfect synchronization, each telling a different part of their shared story. Centuries of misunderstanding were about to be rewritten in a single moment. The creature's massive form could have easily destroyed the entire council chamber. Instead, it demonstrated a level of control and intelligence that shocked every single representative. Its appendages moved with a grace that suggested deep understanding rather than aggression. Sung Ho monitored the transmission from the research station. Years of data collection had led to this moment. Humanity's most significant breakthrough in galactic communication was happening right now. The Kariks began to share its history. not through words, but through a complex neural transmission that filled the council chamber. Entire civilizations passed through their consciousness, cosmic migrations that spanned millions of years, technology so advanced they seemed like magic to human understanding. Director Kim watched proudly. The research that had been mocked for years was now the center of galactic attention. Representatives from different worlds leaned forward. The Carix wasn't just sharing information. It was revealing a fundamental truth about intelligence, communication, and survival. Their civilization had survived not through violence, but through understanding. One by one, the council members began to realize something profound. The Carix weren't a weapon. They were a living library of cosmic knowledge. Each of their 6 eyes contained memories of civilizations long forgotten. Una translated the complex neural transmission. Her voice remained calm, but the information she shared was changing everything humans knew about intelligent life. The creature's history was both beautiful and terrifying. They had watched civilizations rise and fall. They had survived cosmic events that would have destroyed lesser species. Their ability to adapt was beyond anything the Galactic Council had ever imagined. Technological achievements beyond human comprehension became clear. The Carix could manipulate space-time, communicate across dimensional barriers, and understand the fundamental structures of reality in ways that seemed impossible. "We are not what you believed," the transmission suggested. Not in words, but in a wave of pure understanding that crashed through the council chamber. The Andromedan representative's holographic form trembled. The Zeta Collective's delegates looked confused. The Silicon consciousness seemed to be processing information at an incredible speed. Humanity had done what no other species could. They had bridged a communication gap that had existed for thousands of years. A simple human researcher had discovered a way to understand a species that everyone else had written off as nothing more than a living weapon. Sung-Ho watched the transmission. Data. Every moment was being recorded. This would change scientific understanding forever. The Carix moved closer to Una, not as a threat, but as a partner. Their connection was beyond friendship. It was a fundamental understanding of each other's existence. Director Kim smiled. Decades of research, countless failed attempts, and endless ridicule had led to this moment. Humans had proved that communication was about understanding, not about weapons or power. The council chamber remained silent. Words seemed inadequate in the face of such a profound revelation. The Carix's 6 eyes continued to move. Each eye told a different story. Each eye revealed a different aspect of their incredible journey. And in that moment, everything changed. Humanity was no longer just another species in the galaxy. They were the species that could understand the impossible.